Ձեզ, ես Գայանեն եմ Abrahamyan և պատիվ ունեմ այս քննարկումը վարելու և ուզում եմ բեմ հրավիրել մեր հարգարժան բանախոսներին Speier, ԱՄՆ ներկայացուցիչների պալատի նախկին կոնգրեսական, ով ահռելի ջանք է ներդրել և էական դեր է ունեցել Հայաստանի և Արցախի խնդիրների բարձրաձանման, աջակցության ծրագրերի հաստատման և իհարկե ԱՄՆ-ի կողմից ցեղասպանության պաշտոնական ճանաչման կարևոր գործընթացում, սիրելի տիկին կոնգրեսական, հրավիրում եմ բեմ։ Հաջորդ մեր բանախոսը մեծարգո Anthony Portantinոն է, Կալիֆորնիայի նահանգի սենատոր, ով իր ողջ կարիերայի ընթացքում Հայաստանի և Արցախի ամենակարևոր դաշնակիցն ու աջակիցն է եղել ԱՄՆ-ում։ Շնորհակալ ենք ձեր ահռելի աշխատանքի համար, համեցեք։ Պարոն Portantinոյի ներդրած ջանքերը կրկին հայոց ցեղասպանության ճանաչման գործում, ինչպես նաև Արցախի ճանաչման և արցախյան հարցերի բարձրաձայնման գործում իսկապես անգնահատելի է։ Եվ հաջորդ բանախոսը Paula Yacoubianն է, Լիբանանահայ նշանավոր քաղաքական գործիչ և Լիբանանի խորհրդարանի երկու գումարման պատգամավոր, համեցեք։ Տիկին Yacoubiանը ոչ միայն հայտնի է իր իրավունքների պաշտպանության, կոռուպցիայի դեմ պայքարի բազում, նաև մարդասիրական ծրագրերի նախաձեռնություններով և Հայաստանի ու Արցախի խնդիրների բարձրաձայնմամբ, այլ նաև բավական մեծ ծրագիր է և աջակցության ծրագրեր է իրականացրել հենց համայնքային խնդիրների ուղղությամբ։ Եվ վերջապես մեր հաջորդ բանախոսը Mariam Khaloyan, Ամերիկայի հայկական համագումարի կոնգրեսի հետ հարաբերությունների բաժնի տնօրեն, համեցեք Mariam։ Եվ Մարիամը ևս ահռելի աշխատանք է իրականացրել կոնգրեսի հետ աշխատանքի տեսանկյունից և հատկապես ցեղասպանության ճանաչման բանաձևի առաջխաղացման տեսանկյունից։ Շնորհակալություն մեծարգո հյուրեր, ես ինքս ներկայացնեմ ինքս ինձ, ես Գայանեն եմ Abrahamyan, շատ տարիներ, մոտ 25 տարի եղել եմ լրագրող, հետագայում հասկացա, որ միայն խնդիրների բարձրաձայնումը քիչ է և պետք է ինչ-որ կերպ դրանց լուծման ուղղությամբ աշխատել և նաև հիմնադրեցի հասարակական կազմակերպություն, որը կոչվում է հանուն հավասար իրավունքների և հոդված 3 մարդու իրավունքների ակումբը։ 2018 թվականից նաև ազգային ժողովի պատգամավոր եմ ընտրվել, հետագայում մի քանի տարի անց ստիպված եղա հրաժարական տալ, բայց նորից վերադարձա հասարակական ոլորտ և այսօր աշխատում եմ հանուն հավասար իրավունքների կրթական կենտրոնում, իրականացնելով բազում ծրագրեր իրավունքների պաշտպանության, այդ թվում նաև արցախահայերի իրավունքների պաշտպանության ուղղությամբ։ Շնորհակալություն։ Այսօր քննարկելու ենք շատ կարևոր մի խնդիր, մի քանի տեխնիկական հարցեր, որոնք պետք է ներկայացնեմ։ Բանախոսության ժամանակ նաև լինելու են անգլերեն բանախոսներից մեծ մասը խոսելու են անգլերեն, այնպես որ պատրաստ եղեք, եթե կարիք ունենաք թարգմանության։ Ես պարտավորություն ունեմ հայերեն խոսելու, այնպես որ ընթացքում, եթե խնդիր լինի, անպայման կթարգմանեմ, եթե հանկարծ թարգմանության հետ խնդիր ունենաք։ Այսօր քննարկելու ենք այս բանախոսությունը մեր և քննարկումը վերաբերելու է Հայաստան-Սփյուռք հարաբերությունների ամենակարևոր հատվածներից մեկին, Սփյուռքի ջատագովության, Սփյուռքի Հայաստանի խնդիրները բարձրաձայնելու ինստիտուցիոնալ կարևոր գործին, որը Հայաստանի համար Հայաստանի ֆունդամենտալ հիմքերից մեկն է եւ Հայաստանը մեծ հաշվով բավական լրջորեն է հենվում այս կարողության, այս ներուժի վրա, բայց կան օրակարգեր, որոնք պետք է քննարկել, կան օրինակներ նաեւ, որոնք պետք է քննարկել եւ այս տեսանկյունից մեր բանախոսներն ունեն ահռելի փորձ, ահռելի տարիների աշխատանք, նաև փորձառություն, թե որ մարտավարությունն է աշխատել, որը չի աշխատել, որը պետք է ավելի բարելավել եւ այդ ուղղությամբ շարունակել։ Եվ պետք է ուղղակի շեշտեմ, որ այսօր, երբ Հայաստանը էգզիստենցիալ մարտահրավերների առաջ է կանգնած, առավել ու առավել կարևորվում է Սփյուռքի դերակատարումը, Սփյուռքի հատկապես հենց ջատագովության կարևորությունը տարբեր երկրներում եւ այս տեսանկյունից պետք է հիմնական խնդիրները քննարկենք։ Շնորհակալություն։ Սկսենք Տիկին Speier ձեզնից։ Ձեր աշխատանքը կոնգրեսում բավական մեծ է եղել տարիների ընթացքում եւ ոչ միայն տարբեր խնդիրների բարձրաձայնման տեսանկյունից, այլ քանի որ մեզ համար այս պահին ավելի առաջնային է։
We're not able to understand anything because the translation's not working.
Whose translation is not working?
All of ours.
All of ours.
Oh, ես խնդրում եմ թարգմանության խնդիր ունենք այստեղ։ Sure.
You have to.
Ես անգլերեն խոսեմ։
We couldn't understand over both of them.
Okay.
No, they're not working. They're not working.
Oh my gosh. Ներողություն, մենք խնդիր ունենք թարգմանության, ես հիմա փորձեմ այս տեխնիկական խնդիրը լուծել։
How many people speak English?
Just ask our questions in English.
Just questions at least so we can.
Okay, I will try. Չնայած ես ինձ ասել էին, որ ես պիտի հայերեն անպայման խոսեմ, բայց ստիպված պետք է անցնեմ անգլերենի փաստորեն, որովհետև թարգմանության խնդիր ունենք եւ տեխնիկական խնդիր ունենք, չգիտեմ, կարծես չի լուծվում. So I have to turn into English although I was obliged to talk in Armenian, but we have technical problems. So excuse me if my English will not be that fluent.
Perfect.
But still I'm not prepared for this. Miss Congresswoman, thank you very much and thank you all of you for your participation, for your time. This is an honor for us. My question is mainly about your experience working with Congress, raising Armenia's issues. What was effective, what was not effective, especially after the recognizing genocide, because for decades this was the main agenda for the diaspora. After it, you had to change the agendas. Although after 2020, after the war, after the Artsakh problems and also attacks, aggressions against Armenia's proper, of course, you push your efforts in this direction. And I have to say my gratitude. I have to express also my gratitude that was possible. Nancy Pelosi's visit to Armenia, which actually was a prevention of next aggressions against Armenia from Azerbaijan. So this was, of course, a huge work to put in the agenda, Armenia to put in their agenda, which means you put huge efforts to do this. So thank you very much, and we'll ask you to talk about your the work you have done, how it worked, how was your work also with the institutions, diaspora institutions? Was it effective, or what you can add?
Well, thank you, Gayane. It's a great privilege to be here. It's an honor to be here with all of you and to talk about the power of the diaspora and actually the obligation of the diaspora. As I said last night, I think of the diaspora as the guardian angels for our country here in Armenia. I can tell you that after 30 years of trying to get the Armenian genocide resolution through Congress, we saw the window of opportunity when, frankly, Turkey was being very belligerent. And we then brought it up in the House. It passed dramatically with over 400 votes. And then the Senate ended up passing it on a voice vote. So truly remarkable. But to your question, which is what now? What now is actually the much heavier lift. One of the things I did when I was in Congress was try and put a focus on how little foreign aid is provided to Armenia as compared to other countries. And let me give you an example. If you look at the country of Georgia, they have about 1 million more residents in Georgia than Armenia does. But they receive twice as much foreign aid from the United States. So it's incumbent on us in the diaspora now to make the case that there should be some equity, some fairness. I think for a long time there was this belief in our State Department that Armenia was not willing to cut the ties with Russia. And so in terms of giving any kind of military assistance, it has been limited because of the fear that it would end up in the hands of Russia. I think under the Prime Minister's leadership, that has changed dramatically. And I think the more we can point to the independence of Armenia, akin to Georgia's commitment to be independent, the interest in becoming part of the EU, all of that is very, very helpful. But the diaspora has an obligation throughout the world to draw attention to this little landlocked country and the importance it is in terms of being a democracy, a Christian country, and one that wants to move to the EU and to the West. Okay? So, I think.
Yes, actually, I think I will pass my mic to all of you because, seems we have lots of technical problems, but it happens. Thank you very much, Ms. Congresswoman. This is a really important focus that actually Armenia's stance was really important in terms of trying to be more vocal, more easier to advocacy for, in general, we understand that it was and is more easier to advocacy for Armenia when Armenia is democracy, when Armenia is more tend to be or to turn to EU than actually before then we were more aligned with Russia, etc. And seems, things are changing, and in these terms, also the advocacy tools might be changed and might be a bit easier. So we will pass another question, more or less the same question, to Senator Portantino. Senator Anthony, thank you very much for being here. And from your outside eye, not that much outside, but from that part, being a public official and state official, how the work with diaspora institutions are effective, or would you have any advices for them to change their strategies, to change their type of work in this term? Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be here. It's exciting. Last time it was via Zoom because of COVID, so it's nice to be back in Yerevan in person. So thank you for the opportunity. Obviously, California is home to 500,000 Armenian Americans. It's the state with the largest Armenian community in the United States. Southern California is the most populous part of the state with Armenian Americans. I represent 150,000 Armenian Americans in my Senate district. It's 15% of my population. And so it is a loud voice and has a strong presence. Traditionally, as the Congresswoman mentioned, a lot of the focus had been on genocide recognition, which California had recognized the genocide, obviously working with our congressional leaders who did a fantastic job getting President Biden to do it during his administration. That was a big victory for the community. In addition, the community is focused on education issues and having California curriculum teach about the genocide. So non-Armenians, the rest of the 39.5 million people could learn about the genocide. That's been an effort of many of the organizations within the diaspora community in California. And then I would say the third, probably most prominent effort has been on divestment, getting California's pension funds and other money market organizations to not invest in Turkey, and now in particular in Azerbaijan. Just this week, the Armenian Bar Association, CalPERS, which is the $500 billion pension fund, was having a board meeting, and there were members of the Armenian Bar Association who spoke out at that meeting, hoping to get CalPERS to divest from Azerbaijan. And so that's a strong effort. But it also highlights, I think, one of the issues within the community. Different pieces of the community are doing certain things in isolation. So yesterday was the Armenian Bar Association, but the other political organizations were not part of that effort. The Armenian Students Association at the University of California did their own divestment effort, where the students led the effort to get the University of California successfully to divest. But again, it was that organization, not the entire organization, not the multitude of organizations that exist within California. The one exception to that has been the Armenian Museum being built in Glendale. There's an Armenian History Museum. It's about a $75 million effort to build a museum in downtown Glendale. You see every single organization represented on the board. You see both churches on the board. You see every political organization, every civic organization. It's the one effort, and that had its outgrowth from the 100th commemoration of the genocide, where again, leading up to the 100th commemoration of the genocide, all the organizations set their differences aside and worked collectively on that important century-old tragic recognition. Sadly, not all of the efforts get that same unity. I would also say, on the business economic development side, you don't see the political organizations putting as much effort into economic partnerships, synergy. You know, Armenia has such amazing intellectual capital within the tech world, relationships between Silicon Valley and companies here in Yerevan. I think there's a potential to do more in relation to economic development. One of the efforts that a lot of folks in California want is a direct flight from LA to Yerevan. We've held hearings on that, but again, it's not something where every single organization comes together, and that in and of itself would have amazing benefits both to tourism but also to air cargo. One of the issues that I hear from Armenian businesses is not having an efficient cargo exchange or opportunities. And so I think that's an area where the diaspora could do better in working together on some of the economic business development issues. But clearly on lobbying Sacramento, their presence is there. Working within schools and working with educators, the effort is there. But I think the economic piece could be something that beefed up. I know the High Commissioner created Tech Week when he was in Glendale and has been doing a good job in trying to help. We formed a office in Impact Hub here, and so the basis is there. We just need a little bit more of the execution, I think.
Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Senator. This is really very important highlight that everybody in every direction, we should really join our efforts, and this separation and this differentiation is really not working in favor of our issues, especially on Armenia's interests and Armenia's issues. And I know that Paula knows these problems from their country, although she is from Lebanon. She is an opposition member in parliament, so she's not only targeted from own government, but also sometimes she can be targeted also from own community, which is really much more hurtful, because when you think, okay, you are fighting corruption in your country, you are fighting insensitivity, violations of human rights, etc. But it's much more hurtful when you are targeted from your own community. But sometimes it might be another tool to work for the community, to see the community's problems from inside, and also to understand which are the main directions. So how you deal with this, how you manage these problems.
Thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be with you. Well, yes, I represent the Armenian community, because we have a quota system in the Lebanese parliament. So I sit on the Armenian Orthodox seat, and I represent the city of Beirut. However, I consider myself a Lebanese MP, and I work on all issues. And for the irony, all communities in Lebanon, they suffer the same fate from the same corrupt junta that is sometimes the political parties that are maybe different parties. However, they rule the same way, they divide and conquer the same way. And there's lots of similarities between Armenia and Lebanon. Lebanon also is a country that is much bigger than its physical, actual frontiers or borders. Armenia also is a country much, much bigger than its borders. Having such a vibrant, big diaspora everywhere in the world, it's true, this diaspora happened because of a big tragedy. We are all the sons and daughters of the Armenian genocide. My father was a survivor from the Armenian genocide. But this diaspora today is really like the guardian angel, just the way they beautifully was described by Her Excellency. So I think this diaspora can do a lot for Armenia, and especially for the Armenian cause, because this is what unites us as Armenians, wherever we are. Atrocities are still happening till today because of impunity. And the Armenians are really the people that can carry this cause and make it international, make it a human rights cause, because it's still happening till today. And we can all remember Hitler's words. Who remember the Armenian genocide? The wicked Hitler wanted to justify his own atrocities that people forget and sometimes forgive even without retribution or asking for justice. So we have the moral obligation as Armenians to really fight for human rights and to engage others in our cause. So since the 90s, I was born in the Lebanese Civil War in 1976. since the 90s, 93, 94, I was very young, and I started to talk about my roots, about my father. Why are we everywhere in the world? Her Excellency yesterday said, I couldn't define where is Armenia. I couldn't define this little country that was part of the Soviet Union. Today, things are different. Today, we can trace who we are. We shouldn't wait for the interest and the influence and, you know, the little politics of any country to talk and to put on the agenda our cause that is a human cause. It's not only Armenian. So one thing also I always emphasize, this was never a Muslim-Christian conflict, never. And those who say that are falsifying history, they're telling a lie. The Germans, during World War I, they were in alliance with Turkey. The rifles that killed the Armenian was German-made. And lots of the atrocities were done under German eyes. Now, the Germans apologized and they're in a different place right now, something that Turkey cannot do and will never do. But just to say, Christian Germany was turning not only a blind eye on the atrocities, it was helping the Turks doing it. And my father and lots of Armenians were rescued by Muslim Arabs. Until today, there's a very important document for the Sharif Hussein, who was the leader of the Arab Revolution against the Ottoman Empire. He was asking all governors to protect the Armenians and to help them and give them refuge. And this is why many Armenians could, you know, overcome the Deir Zor desert and could continue. And this is why there's a diaspora today. So we have to be very careful when we defend our rights and when we defend our cause and history. We have to be very prudent how we present it. So I would like to maybe talk more about it, but I don't want to take the time from other speakers. Thank you.
We will have another round,
Sure.
of course. I wanted to...
Thank you.
I wanted to remind you that you can write your questions with a QR code. Where is the QR code? Yeah. Please enter to this QR code and you can put your questions, because in few minutes we will open the floor for the audience. Please come up with your questions. Please be active. But also I have to apologize that might be I would not be able to cover all the questions, to give all the questions, but I will try. If you need a translation, I can say the same in Armenian. Թարգմանության կարիք ունեք, ես նույնը հայերեն ասեմ, խնդրում եմ QR կոդով մտեք համակարգ, Slido համակարգ, եւ որով կարող եք նաեւ ձեր հարցերը ուղղել մեր բանախոսներին։ Ես իհարկե նախապես ներողություն եմ խնդրում, եթե չկարողանամ բոլոր հարցերը հղել, կփորձեմ ամեն դեպքում։ And my last question to Mariam. Thank you, Mariam, for your tremendous work this several with Congress. My question is, my question is mainly about your work, we are not lucky with the technique today, not just with the Congress, but also with Armenia diaspora. My main question would be about Armenian diaspora cooperation. The lack. Or the lack of cooperation. So, did you feel during these years that you don't know, or you have the lack of knowledge, what is Armenia's main interest at this point? Because in this vibrant world, and especially in our region, these interests, these agendas can be really very quickly and dramatically changed. So do you have that, or assembly in general, you as a representative of the most important or one of the most important organizations from diaspora, did you feel this lack of cooperation with Armenia, or there is channels to work and it's effective?
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you so much for moderating this very impactful event. And it's an honor to be here with you and the honorable speakers that we have today. The Armenian Assembly of America, the organization that I work for, strongly works with the Armenian American community and prides itself on keeping in touch with the Armenian American diaspora, particularly in the United States. I think education, being one of our pillars of the organization, has done an incredible job on ensuring that the Armenian American community stays engaged with the government, because if you are living in America, you obviously have the US government that you're able to advocate with on issues that are important to our community, that being recognition of the Armenian genocide, and in the past few years, with all the advocacy work that's been done after the war and the events of last year as well. The question you asked about the engagement of how our community does, I think the 2020 war definitely brought us all together and brought up some very key points of understanding where we're headed as a community as a whole, whether that's in the United States as a diaspora or that you're an Armenian around the world. Our identity being one that is a core for us as Armenians, and myself being from here, living now abroad, being part of the diaspora, I think that the most important thing is to raise awareness about the issues that we care about. Working closely with members of Congress on Capitol Hill. It's an honor to be here today with Congresswoman Jackie Speier. We've worked closely together on trying to pass legislation that's important, and I would not be here today if it wasn't for the work that the Assembly does with coordinating, whether that's behind the scenes with members of Congress, as well as grassroots engagement, which really puts our issues on the map when it comes to raising awareness. The engagement has been so much so that there is a litany of legislation that's currently pending, and that comes from the outroar of the community that's been raising the awareness about the concerns that they've had, and also learning how to navigate the US system and engaging with the US government. So I take great pride in knowing that I somehow contribute a little bit to raising that awareness and also educating the next generation as to what it's like to be an Armenian American, and to also be able to voice the concerns that you have. Our organization puts on a conference once a year that invites Armenian Americans to Capitol Hill, where when I'm usually there, it's myself and my folders, and I tend to go in and out of offices talking about issues that are important. And then the few days that we have where we're on the Hill all together, we're able to raise those issues with members of Congress. And it's great to see Armenian Americans come to DC, the most impactful city in the United States, where everything gets done. Sometimes doesn't get done, but working towards getting things done. It's great to see the engagement when Armenians are on the Hill, working together, going in and out of offices, and talking about issues that are important to us. So thank you for your question.
Thank you. From audience, we don't have any question at this moment, so I will come up with second round of questions until they will be more active. Ms. Congresswoman, your work during these years was really encouraging for others. But now as you said yesterday, now we're really worried that at this moment, and maybe during next elections, we will not have more congresswomen or congressmen with Armenian descent. Is this really important to be more devoted lobbyist, or just not a lobbyist but devoted person to the questions, to Armenia, to Artsakh issues, to Armenia's community issues, or it is about the agenda? Because as you know, and everybody knows at this point, it's much difficult to work, especially in US, because Azeri, Turkish lobby organizations are more active. They're putting much more joint efforts and much more financial resources to the process. So in this case, the only privilege we might have is the soul that you have and others would have.
So one of the things that's happening in the United States that is sad is that for the first time since 1992, there will not be an Armenian American in the Congress of the United States. My colleague, Congresswoman Anna Eshu, retires at the end of this year. Now, do you have to be an Armenian American to value Armenia? Absolutely not. I co-chair the Armenian American Caucus in Congress along with Frank Pallone, who is not Armenian, but has made more trips to Armenia than probably all of us combined. He loves Armenia, and he has more rugs to show you of his great love. So you don't have to be Armenian in order to be concerned about the country. Let me give you an example that I think is helpful. Many ethnic groups in the United States create caucuses. We have an Armenian caucus, but they do more than that. There's one ethnic group in the United States. There are 7 million people from this particular ethnic group. There's about 1.5 million Armenians. But they raised last year $17 million to contribute to candidates running for office in the United States. So their agenda is front and center, in part because they have made friends by contributing to the campaigns of many of these individuals that they believe have a commitment to their country. That's number one. The second thing they do that I really want to encourage all of you in the diaspora to do in your countries is create a program to bring elected officials to Armenia. It's not expensive. We were doing back of the envelope assessment, and we figured it was about $4,000 per person to come to Armenia, including air travel and hotel. It makes a huge difference when you've been here. This particular ethnic group takes 30 members to their country every single year, and they urge them to go back with subsequent trips. So I think taking a page from their playbook would be helpful. And I think for under $500,000, you could create a program where you could bring 30, 40, 50 elected officials, both from states and from the parliaments of your countries, to Armenia to make the case. The other thing that's important to point out is that Armenia is listed with the poorest countries of Europe. 25% of the population is living in poverty. So Armenia is in the category with Moldova and Bosnia-Herzegovina. Well, that should be a reason enough for foreign countries that are providing foreign aid to recognize that Armenia is in need of resources, particularly since there's been an influx of over 120,000 people from Artsakh who need housing and vocational training and the opportunity to succeed. So those are some opportunities I think we can all do within the diaspora to elevate in the powers that be the recognition that Armenia is part of a critical combination of countries that is interested in leaning to the West and promoting democracy.
Thank you very much. Very important focus and really important advice. This is, and I can really prove that this worked. Previously, when I was in Parliament, I had a privilege to meet with Paula, to meet with other congressmen and congresswomen. And also, I had a privilege to invite European Parliament members, and this really changed. We saw their changed attitude towards Armenia, towards Armenia's issues, towards Artsakh issues. Mr. Senator, you have been in Artsakh for several times, if I'm not mistaken, 3 or 4 times. 4 times. And your involvement in raising the issues, especially after the war, especially during the blockade, daily, it was kind of your daily work, seems. What do you think? What will work now? What will really support now? How we can really effectively advocate for these issues? First of all, humanitarian support, etc., or more focusing on human rights, return rights, etc. Which is your advice?
Well, first of all, I think one of the things that the Congresswoman mentioned, which is so significant, is the level of U.S. aid to Armenia as a whole and the Armenian people. And I know she has worked tirelessly in Washington with Congressman Schiff and others to make those efforts. And it is going to be a big loss in Washington to not have those stalwart, long-time serving Congress members like Congressman Speier and Congressmember Eshoo. They are fighting those battles. Within human rights versus other issues, there's never not a good time to advocate for human rights. It's never inappropriate to advocate for a population to be treated well, to be not persecuted, to not be treated with genocidal intent. And so I think it's always appropriate to advocate for the Artsakhi people, for people around the globe who are being persecuted, and in this case, driven from their homeland tragically. Many people ask me why I was so taken with Artsakh and its people, and it goes back to my very first visit when I was there. I was in the foxhole in Agdam, 200 yards away from the Azeri tanks, and one of the most tragic sentences that I've ever heard in my political life was said to me. In 2016, a soldier looked us in the eye in the foxhole and said, "We know we're on our own, and we know even our friends are not our friends." And another soldier handed me a handful of dirt and said, "This is our land, we're going to stand on our land, and we're going to fight on our land, and we're going to die on our land." And to have those two sentences where a soldier knew that they were going to get abandoned in the end but still fought bravely anyway is a testament to those people. And the fact that the international community did not speak out more vociferously against the Lashin corridor blockade and didn't provide more humanitarian assistance is a black mark on the entire international community. And we all have to do better, from Washington to California to around the globe, to advocate for people in need like that. I also want to touch upon something as far as representation in politics goes. Right now in Sacramento, there's 120 legislators. There is not one Armenian American in the legislature. Next year, there will be one. Armenian elected representation is happening in non-Armenian districts. So John Harabidian will be going to Sacramento as an assembly member from Pasadena, not from Glendale. When the redistricting of California happened, sadly, the Armenian community was shortchanged because the city of Glendale was bifurcated. And so the population was specifically neutered from its political influence on a statewide effort. And so right now you have the largest Armenian American population not represented by an Armenian in the Assembly, in the Senate, or in Congress. Think about that. Now on the local level, it's been very effective. You know, 4 out of the 5 Glendale City Council members are Armenian Americans. You have Armenian representation in Burbank. You have other cities. Paul Krikorian, who's the first Armenian American LA City Council president, got elected in a district that does not have a large Armenian population. And he's now the first Armenian American to be city council president. So the political influence is there. It just needs to be more united in its effort to be more effective on a bigger scale than on the local level.
Thank you very much. And we have lots of questions. So my next question for Paula will be from the audience. So let me read.
Can I say something quickly?
Yeah,
before that?
sure.
But I would like to say that there are no friends when it comes to politics or to relation with countries or governments or states. It's only purely about interests, dominance, influence. There's no friendship there. Let's be realistic. The only friends we can have are the guardian angels again. So, but for the Armenian diaspora specifically, it relates a lot to the Lebanese diaspora. They are engaged, but they don't know how they can be efficient. So I think that the young country that is Armenia today has a crucial role in reaching out through its embassies, through the friends that I have within the Armenian community, because these are true friends, they're real friends. But the world of politics will change every day. One day, Russia is backing you for its own agenda. The next day, you see the EU, for instance, trading the Azeri oil with Armenian blood. This is what happened in Artsakh. They, again, turned a blind eye to the atrocities that happened in Artsakh. They just took the oil, and nothing happened. So, unfortunately, this is what politics is about. So we have to know how to be realistic, how to know how to reach out. And I understand the United States is so important. Lobbying there is so efficient and important. But like in 1 month, there's election in the United States. Is there an Armenian common ground for any candidate, how we should go, if we should go Republican or Democrat? I don't think this is an issue or an important layer for the Armenian community there. And this is something that we have to raise awareness about, because sometimes people just don't know how much influence they can have during the voting in the ballots, especially now the swing states are very important. Armenians are in the swing states. Everyone is, trying every candidate is trying to have, more people around them. So I think these are opportunities to have a serious political work when it comes to lobbying, especially when there's campaigning. And now I think the time is ripe to do that. Sorry. You want to go back to the question? Thank you. Oh.
Here, give her.
Another question for you, Paula. The question is from Ellen Yacoubian. With Beirut's Armenians returning to Yerevan, do you see this as a gain to Yerevan or loss for Beirut? And same for other countries with Armenian communities as well.
What a beautiful question. Where is Helen? Is she? Okay. Well, thank you for this question. I'm very Lebanese. I was born in Beirut. I lived there all my life. I went to an Armenian school. However, my Armenian language is not very strong. But I understand everything. I can write and read a little bit. What I want to say here that you can be Lebanese, you can be American, you can be French, and you can have the Armenian blood. They're not opposing values, not at all. We are a mixture. Humanity is all of it a mixture. When you stand at the right side of history, you don't have a problem. Plus, I'm defending the Armenian cause, despite the fact that there's so many causes to defend in Lebanon. But you can do both at the same time. It doesn't mean that you're putting something ahead of something else. Now, being Lebanese Armenian in Yerevan is definitely a big win for Yerevan, and also it's a big win for Lebanon. And I will say why. This is not a slogan. The Lebanese diaspora was so important. It was always very important for Lebanon. It keeps Lebanon alive. It's the oxygen of Lebanon is its diaspora, through remittances, through everything else. Plus, in the last election, the real change came from the diaspora, not the Lebanese who live under the crisis and under very difficult conditions in Lebanon. The true change came from those who are abroad. So it is very important to keep Lebanon in your heart and to know that it's not the fault of Lebanon that there is such a huge diaspora that everyone wants to leave for work, for a better life. It's the problem with those ruling the country since 100 years, not only since now, since 75 till now, if you want to be more specific. The responsibility relies on the political parties in Lebanon. And also, there's a big responsibility on the people of Lebanon to change, to do something like the vote sanction, we say in French, to sanction those who don't deliver. They've been promising people a lot of things and they didn't deliver. Yet the Lebanese, because of sectarian sentiment, keep on electing the same political parties. However, the diaspora brought the change. And I'm telling you again, being a Lebanese Armenian in Yerevan or in Paris or anywhere in the world, they should keep fighting for Lebanon. They should keep Lebanon in their heart, and at the same time, they can do so much, bringing diversity to Yerevan, bringing the know-how, bringing this diversity taste that is so important for Armenia today. Armenia should rely on tourism. Tourism will be a huge sector here. And having so much diaspora, you don't need any other tourist. Even if you just rely on Armenians that are spread everywhere in the world, it's more than you can take in this country. Hoping that this sector, I really hope if I can contribute also in this field, I'll be very happy to see the High Commissioner later, because this is what I want to talk about. There's a huge potential in the diaspora and beyond the diaspora. This is a beautiful country that needs to be put on the map. And I was very happy today to hear the Prime Minister emphasizing the importance of living happily. Everyone wants to fight, to have big slogans. Everyone wants, this is good. I'm not saying we have to compromise our dignity. However, we have to know that the humans that live today have the right to live, to have all their life. They're not just, victims for the others to survive. So I was happy with the approach for prosperity, for stability. It's highly needed in small countries that have a lot of economic challenges. So yes, we need that. And the more I stay here, the more I see the similarities with Lebanon. So again, us also Lebanese, we don't have friends when it comes to the international community who has only their interest. But we should keep fighting, especially through our diaspora, to just do what's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, Paula opened the another issue and another perspective, and I will come up with another question, and I have to apologize. The question was not from Ellen. I can see who is the sender of the question. Ellen is our volunteers. Sorry for that. Another question is more or less maybe connected what you said about looking forward, maybe also putting more efforts on tourism, on economy, and also Mr. Senator's focus that we should also focus on trying to have investments, more connections with economy, etc. So here is another question. The question is, don't you think it's high time to stop dwelling on the past and put more emphasis on long-term goals and thinking about what Armenia has to offer the world? So, yeah.
No, we shouldn't forget.
It's for everyone.
Oh.
So maybe
Very briefly,
yeah,
very
sure.
briefly, I would like to say we should never forget the past. And again, we can remember our past, we can know our history, and look to the future. Those who know really where they come from, they can go forward much faster, much better, more solid ground. And we just don't know our history, and that's it. We have to fight for what's right, not only for Armenians, for all humanity. The atrocities that are happening right now in Gaza, should we feel involved or not? Maybe they're not the same religion as we are. However, if we look for the similarity, we're not only humans, and we should have the right feelings, no matter what the differences are. We, as the people, we should not think like the politicians do. It's not about divide and conquer. On the contrary, it's about bringing people together. We have to refuse the vision. There isn't first-class victims and second-class victims. A victim is a victim. A child is a child. And what's happening today is a result of impunity, of not setting the record straight and right since the beginning, since the genocide of the last century, the biggest genocide of the last century. So it was, again, very important for the humanity to stand with Armenians and to say that was wrong and to hold Turkey accountable. This is the only way for the future victims to be protected. So when you know your history and you fight for it, you are protecting the coming generations and you are protecting humanity as a whole.
Thank you very much. Pass Mariam, and then I will ask Ms. Congresswoman and Mr. Senator to answer to the question. Please, Mariam.
Thank you, Paula, for those remarks. You're absolutely right. You cannot go forward if you don't recognize your past and be able to cope with the present, to be able to have a better outlook of what the future looks like. And when you talk about the future, you talk about the next generation of Armenians around the world, the next generations of Armenians in Armenia, and what that looks like when we try to unify a message on where we're moving forward. In America, it's easy to look over, since we have so many issues domestically, it's oftentimes easy to overlook some of the issues that have happened in the past when we're looking at issues that come to United States and Armenia. But now, given all the changes that have happened, the past few years have really opened up that dialogue that allow better communication, which is key when we're talking about uniting diasporans around the world. Communication being an asset that we have at our fingertips and what essentially has brought us here together today. We have to be able to use that to an advantage for us. Whether it's on social media, whether it's how we educate one another, the conversations that we have at our dinner tables, around parties when we're getting together, and the identity that I go back to when speaking about Armenians. when you say dwell on the past, it's not necessarily dwelling on the past. It's about being able to come to some kind of peace and be able to understand that when you're a victim, certainly. However, moving forward, you're going to have to be able to somehow be at peace of where you are and be able to move forward. And I see that going back to the education, awareness, and we do that a lot when we meet with community members. I travel with my colleagues to various states in America and meet with different pockets of Armenian Americans who are making a difference in their microcosm. And I say microcosm because I think Armenian Americans comprise of a microcosm of what the United States look like, whether it comes to political parties, whether it comes to beliefs, obviously with its Armenian entity of it. And visiting so many different communities has really allowed me to see what the priorities are for community members, and it's family. It's our culture, it's our belief, it's ensuring that we're able to speak Armenian language in schools, whether it's the Sunday school that teaches it, but keeping that cultural aspect alive, especially when you're living abroad, is definitely an asset for the communities that are able to do that. So I'm glad that Armenian Americans are able to continue to keep their culture alive even when they're outside of Armenia. And I think that's essentially what the ultimate future would be, a prosperous way to be for Armenians outside of Armenia. Thank you.
So George Santana, who was a Spanish philosopher, once said, "Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it." So on the one hand, it has to inform the present and the future. But I think the question in terms of dwelling on the past is one that we should recognize is not productive moving forward. Armenia is not... Oh, it's back. Okay. Armenia's future is what we have to be focused on. And as I look at what happens around the world, we oftentimes in our various countries look at aggressors and don't take action. The United States failed when Russia took Crimea, which then gave them the license to move into Ukraine. Azerbaijan attacking Armenia as an aggressor is something that we have got to be very clear about not allowing it to happen. So there's lots of issues in Armenia today that we in the diaspora have a responsibility to recognize and do what we can within the diaspora to fix, whether it's the poverty level, whether it's the need for military equipment, whether it's the need to promote tourism. I would agree with you. Tourism should be front and center because this country has so much to offer, and yet it's much of a secret as opposed to something that is advertised, for instance, on local TV. So yes, it's time to really focus on the Armenia of today and what we want to see in the Armenia of tomorrow, because it's still a fragile country. And if you saw what Russia did in Ukraine, if you wanted to recreate the Soviet Union, it would be really easy to knock off a number of former satellites. And Armenia, obviously, is one of them. So it's really important in our various countries to speak up about aggression that we see going on around the world.
I don't know, as everyone has said, it's important to know your history. It's important to know how you got or how we came to a particular moment in time, and understanding the history of that helps us be educated about our current situation. But I don't think you can ever lose sight or never diminish how important it is to be optimistic about the future, to plan for the future, to envision the future. I've been lecturing the last 2 weeks at the American University in Armenia, and I've been so impressed by the students, and I see a lot of similarities between college students in the US and college students here. They want a better future. As you talked about, the importance of youth, it's their future. And there is a generational divide in how we see that future coming to pass. And I think that's an untapped resource of knowledge, of passion, of interest, of vision, of creativity, not being cognizant of what 25-year-olds are thinking about where they see their country in 25 years from today. And I've been so blown away by the perspective and the passion of these students. Many of them are not from Yerevan. They come from the country. They come from rural parts of the state. They come from the diaspora. They don't all see the world the same way, but they want a better world. And I think we would do better if we listened, talked, and helped bring their perspective to how we're going to make Armenia strong and better and prosperous, but all of our countries strong and prosperous, because these young people have been through a lot, especially here, you know, going through war, going through COVID, going through things that other generations haven't had in decades. They've gone through, and they have a perspective that I think is unique. And I think as we look to the future, we should respect those voices.
Thank you.
Very
Can
short.
I add something
quickly? When I speak about my father, I'm trying to protect my son, and I'm trying to protect the future generation. It's very important for me to stay engaged and to repeat what happened to the world. Being advocate or being an activist, especially in the field of human rights, this is a shield for the future.
Yeah. Very short question for Ms. Congresswoman and Mr. Senator. How will the election of Kamala Harris as the US President affect the lives of American Armenians and the US-Armenia relations?
You're being very optimistic, and I love your optimism.
Yes.
But if you are an American here, recognize that the election is tied right now. It is really a statistical tie. No matter what the polls say, if you drill down, it is indeed very close and can tip either way. I want to believe that Kamala Harris is going to be our next president, and I can feel very confident that her interests will be in building relationships with countries around the world, not tearing them down. I can tell you that the NATO relationship will be as strong as ever, that her interest in wanting to continue the coordination with foreign countries on issues like climate change will be very solid, that we will continue with the Paris Accord. All of those elements that have been put back in place under the Biden administration will continue under a Harris administration. Now, if former President Trump is elected,
Let's not talk about it.
I mean, it will be a very different America and a very different world. So I feel very strongly that if we want to have a world in which there's compassion, where there's positive energy, where we're looking to the future and not the past, we really must support Kamala Harris.
I could not agree more with my colleague from Washington. You know, there's two ways to stand tall. One is to actually have stature and rise up, and the other is to cut the limbs off other people so you look taller. This election is about somebody who's trying to rise up versus somebody whose whole political strength is about cutting other people's limbs off and artificially inflating themselves. I think you see a choice between somebody who truly is looking out for people, common people, everyday people, versus somebody who is closer to oligarchs and dictators around the world, who has shared his affinity for Erdogan publicly. And so I think for the future of the United States, for the future of Armenia, for decency and common good, I think this is a critical election. And as the Congresswoman mentioned, sadly, it's a very, very divided country right now with a very, very close election, but I don't think the stakes could ever be higher. I'm also somebody who believes strongly in having a strong two-party system. I think America is stronger when the Republican Party is functioning well and the Democratic Party is functioning well. And we have a principled debate based on issues and perspective, not based on personalities and mean-spiritedness. And I think that's another critical juncture here. I think for the Republican Party to be stronger in the United States, which I think serves democracy better, to have a viable two-party system with principled people, it's critical that Kamala Harris wins, which is why you've seen so many long-standing Republican officials from former Republican presidential administrations breaking with their party to support Kamala Harris, because they know their party depends on having a different voice at the head of it, and I think America will be better served having two proud, principled parties fighting on issues, not on personality.
I just wanted to add one little bit of lightness, I guess. Voting is like driving. If you want to drive and you put it in D, you vote Democratic. If you want to move in reverse, you vote Republican.
Very cute. I like that.
You know, sometimes you have to choose, in politics especially, and in voting, sometimes you have to choose between evil and the less evil. So I think, yeah, it's very, very obvious. And the world needs a woman today. And some men are women when it comes to having compassion, and some men are mothers sometimes in this manner. So I'm not just talking about the gender here, I'm talking about the approach. So we all hope we'll win.
Also, it will change really. It will be huge, the first women president, so fingers crossed. Another question from the audience, and I really agree with this question. Big issue with diaspora are mixed messages, different actions, goals, egos. What is the one message which we could all present together other than genocide? Other than genocide.
Thank you for your question. Thank you for your question. So I always say that in any healthy democracy, it's good to have opposition, because then you have different ideas circulating around the same topic. And that goes to say with Armenian issues as well. There are different types of organizations working towards the betterment for Armenia. And essentially, if there could be one message that would be a blanket to cover the issues, it would be to ensure Armenia's security. And I think that's something that's the elephant in the room that we haven't addressed yet, that is an existential crisis that the borders currently face. And it's a present that we can't avoid, so we can't take that off our minds. And if I may put, to follow up with the previous questions regarding elections, which our organization does not comment on elections. We're a nonpartisan organization, and I would point the other side of that to put Armenian Americans, let's say, at ease of thinking who's next in the administration. That only is a motivating point for everyone to educate themselves more and also be more involved in the government process, whether it's Democrat or Republican, to also help one another to rise in higher positions in the US government, to be able to understand how that navigating process looks like. So every time an election comes around, we're not worried about what's better, Republican or Democrat. We're worried about ensuring that our issues are known to both parties to be able to further advance the issues that we care about.
Well, it's very healthy to be divided, to have different opinions. It's very good to have debate, and it's okay if the Armenian diaspora is divided in politics. Some are with this party, some are with the other party. That's really very healthy, and this is what democracy is about. However, the Armenian genocide is something that we all agree on. And this is something that even if you're not Armenian, you should agree on. This is something not debatable. This is just la vérité de la police, we say in French. This is obvious. It's obvious. We know why we are everywhere in the world. We know what happened. The world knows what happened. So there is no issue that can be as unifying to the Armenian diaspora as much as this one. But still, I would ask the diaspora to know the facts and know the facts right. I'm telling you, we have lots of problems. I come from a country that is in crisis all the time, non-stop. I mean, you heard the news yesterday. Things that never happen anywhere in the world happens in my tiny country. And things that are science fiction sometimes. So those who follow the news, they know what I'm talking about. Yesterday there was a cyber genocide in Lebanon. So I'm telling you this just to know that being an engaged citizen, even if you don't like politics, even if politics is something that is maybe destroying your life, but because politics can destroy lives, people should know how to vote, and they should get their facts right. There is lots of distortion today, lots of fake news, lots of facts that are completely not true. So this is what I can say. I cannot think of something else that can bring any diaspora together, even the Lebanese diaspora. It's highly divided. It's like black and white sometimes, but those who really follow the news, try to dig more, they're enlightened citizens, and they can do much better choices and decisions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what I would add is I agree that security is probably the #1 issue. There are real threats to and you all know this, there are real threats to this country. There are people with genocidal intent. We've seen it. It's happening. And I would say, as the non-Armenian, I'm going to go out on a limb and say the best way to ensure that is for folks to stop fighting each other. To stop fighting each other. Unite behind that common goal and stop worrying about other things. I get criticized in my district because who I'm in a photo with. Different groups get mad at me because I take a picture with somebody. Don't you think there are bigger causes than worrying about who your politicians are in pictures with? Think about that. Work together to make this country safe and secure and successful, and stop worrying about fights that go back longer than all of us have been alive on the politics side of the issue. That would be what I would say. And the other thing is, no one likes to be told what to do. Work with the grassroots from the ground up to make things effective versus trying to dictate will from the top down. Those are my points.
George, I've got it. I think Carvel was the 1992 campaign manager for Bill Clinton. And he came up with a motto which has stood the test of time. And he said that campaign was all about, it's the economy, stupid. And I would say that for all of us, it's the future, stupid. That's what we need to focus on. The extent to which the diaspora wants to divide is really playing into the hands of Putin and others who don't want to see Armenia succeed. So, I think it's time to take the gloves off and look at how we can work together. And I think it's all about the future. It's the future generation, it's the national security, it's the economy, but it's about moving forward.
Thank you very much. And last question. It's about the future, and it's about the future generation. What strategies can the diaspora use to engage younger generations in advocating for Armenia's interest while maintaining a connection to their heritage? So, and as this is also the last question, I would like to ask you also to wrap up and to do some conclusions from this panel. So answer the question and also come up with your conclusions. Yeah, no, you first. Yeah, I will repeat the question. The question is, what strategies can the diaspora use to engage younger generations in advocacy, advocating for Armenia's interest while maintaining a connection to their heritage?
A lot of things that we can encourage in the diaspora for young people. Creating a program where they can spend their summers here in Armenia is a way of getting them charged about their heritage and their ability to create change. I think doing events locally. Most ethnic groups in the United States find a way to bring the entire community together by having art festivals, food festivals, celebrating their particular event, whether it's an Easter celebration or a Muslim event, and inviting the community to attend. That, I think, would be another way of bringing young people. Having young people as part of the decision-making when you do events locally is another way of making sure that they are engaged. To wrap up, I would just say that all of you who are here because you feel passionately about Armenia. You've made the trek here from all over the world. Your passion for Armenia can be bottled, so to speak, in your home countries presently by thinking about running for office. There's no magic to running for office. If you have the fire in your belly, if you have issues that you're concerned about locally, I urge you to consider running, because not only will you be helping the country in which you live, but you'll be preparing yourself to maybe someday be in a position where you could help Armenia from your post in a legislative function.
As far as engaging youth and young people, obviously academic exchanges, programs, as the Congresswoman mentioned, to attract diasporan youth to come here to learn. I think another thing is mentorships, apprenticeships, encouraging young people to get involved in government offices, to volunteer on campaigns, to work. on my staff, I have 5 Armenian Americans who work on my staff. But I have a district that has a large Armenian population. Making sure that those of my colleagues who don't represent Armenian communities have Armenian staff. Encouraging young Armenians here to get involved in politics and government. And I tell a lot of young people, every interest has full-time professional people who work in it. Causes have full-time professional people that work in it. It's not just the elected official, whether it's environmental protection, energy policy, engineering, entrepreneurship, all of those parts of our government have entrees into it to make a difference in a grassroots perspective. So I think that's some of the things that we can do to get more young people involved in the decision-making and the process. As far as a parting thought, as I said in the very beginning, the infrastructure is there. There are existing organizations, there's existing business opportunities, there's existing ways to maximize the diasporan emphasis and help here. And one of the interesting things about being an innovator is finding out what works and copying it makes you innovative. So looking at what is being successful and duplicating it using the existing infrastructure can make a significant difference. So thank you for letting me be part of this. Appreciate it.
When engaging the future, the youth is engaging the future of this country. In Lebanon, we have a beautiful saying. It says the diaspora is one wing and the Lebanese in Lebanon is the other wing, and the country will fly only with 2 wings. And it's the same. It applies here also to Armenia. So I think, again, bringing the diaspora, bringing the youth to see the country and to explore it and to know more about their history is very important. But today also you can go to these communities. I think the Armenian government and even the Armenian influencers, the Armenian artists, they can do so much to reach out for these people wherever they are, speak the language they master the best. Armenians in America, their main language is English, despite the fact that they're keeping their language, their heritage, their schools. But the new generation, let's be realistic, after all these years, a lot of them are losing the language. But when you lose the language, you should not lose, the blood or your history or your heritage. I'm not saying that it's a small detail to lose the language, but for us, we have millions of Lebanese in Brazil who do not speak Arabic, or they don't understand the Lebanese dialect, but they're fully engaged in helping Lebanon and other places everywhere else. So I think it applies the same to Armenia. Now in Lebanon, I have amazing people that work with me and that help me. Some of them are Armenians. Let me tell you, they pay a very high price just because we are in the opposition. And they pay a higher price, a double price, from the non-Armenians in the government and from the political Armenian parties. Bayzik Khaloyan Hosteh, she's a very well-known Armenian journalist. She has a beautiful newsletter, Baykar. So she had her newspaper stopped for weeks, and she wasn't able to publish just because she is in the opposition. It's not easy, to be in the opposition in some of the countries, especially third world countries. They pay a very high price, but despite this fact, they should keep on doing what's right. They should keep following their beliefs and not only their interests. So it's a small price to pay sometimes, even if the price is big. It's small price to pay because this is the only way where people in power can rectify and can do better. If there is, again, impunity when it comes to those who are in office, this is also another layer of a disastrous, impunity word. So I just salute them one by one, and I know the high price they pay just because they want to say we deserve better, we deserve a better country. And at the same time, they are very much involved in Armenian issues. They were trying to help as much as possible in the Artsakh tragedy, and everyone can multitask if they want to. Thank you.
Thank you. One comment before Mariam. We will show the website QR code, so please enter it, please follow the website of the summit for further, also for next year. I think this is really good that now we have also a website. So sorry, Mariam. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So we talked about engagement, we talked about diaspora, communication, and I could only use that as grounds to pitch the internship program at the Armenian Assembly. I myself am an alumna of the program. Moving from Armenia to the United States, I obviously wanted to keep my heritage alive and figure out avenues of how to better stay engaged with the Armenian American community. And I came across the organization that I work for now, which is a nonpartisan organization. We're able to work with all sides of the aisle. And I ended up doing an internship while I had no interest in doing anything public policy related. I ended up interning for the Armenian Genocide Institute during the centennial year of the Armenian Genocide in 2015, and it shaped my way of where I am today. And I encourage you, if you know any college students who are keen on learning about what gets done in DC, I would encourage you to either apply or showcase the internship to your friends and family who are interested in coming to DC for an 8-week summer in Washington, DC, where you're placed with offices with members of Congress, where you're placed with any interests that you have. DC has a place for you, no matter what your interests are in the future. And I always encourage, whether you're a future doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, there's something to learn about DC that shapes where you end up in life, that really puts a perspective on how things get shaped around the world and how much impact Capitol Hill and the legislative branch have when it comes to understanding issues related to Armenians or related to what happens globally. So to wrap up, I would first and foremost like to thank our esteemed panelists for being here today. It's such an honor again to be with all of you, and also circling back is to stay engaged and stay connected with one another. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, thank you very much. It was really an honor to moderate this panel. Although we had lots of technical issues, but I think we managed it. Thank you, dear audience, for your questions, which really fill the gaps to our panel. Just few takeaways from our discussion. I wanted to highlight, first, be united, which is mainly the main takeaway that we should understand, at least. The next is look forward and try to focus on what we really can do in terms of supporting Armenia's economy, supporting more investments and ties with, especially with US, not just advocating on different issues that Armenia has now supporting politically, but this support should also be connected and actually deepened with economy as well. And the other message, that the question was, what we can have the general message besides the genocide, is Armenia's security, which is really, we are under existential threat at this moment. Maybe we really don't imagine what are the main threats at this moment and this point, but we are in, and we really fingers crossed that Trump will not be there. Otherwise, we don't know what will be with Armenia, because at this moment, Aliyev and Putin are cherishing, and they are crossing fingers that Trump will be elected. So thank you very much. It was my honor, and I do think that there have been several really important messages and takeaways that you have. And sorry for my not perfect English, because I was not prepared to moderate this panel in English. Thank you very much.
Let's get a panel picture.